Hello and welcome to the latest Public Assurance and Accountability session focused on police visibility and contact. My name is John Campion and I'm the West Mercia Police and Crime Commissioner, and we're going to run through in today's sessions a range of issues focused on those two areas. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the rest of my colleagues that were joined on today's session.
Pippa Mills, Chief Constable of West Mercia Police.
Hello, and I'm Deputy Chief Constable Alex Murray.
Hello, I'm Marc Bayliss. I'm the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner.
So, as the voice of the public in policing, one of my roles is to hold the Chief Constable to account for the service that she and her colleagues deliver to our communities across West Mercia, ensuring that the voice of the public is at the heart of the very important emergency service and community service that West Mercia Police are. I want to ensure that your views are ever present right at the heart of the work that the police do, and I, as Commissioner, are responsible for ensuring that your voice is heard. I know that the public value the work that police officers do for their community, and indeed in the latest perception survey, a fifth of respondents said that they see a police officer or PCSO once a week, and 3/5 were satisfied with the level of policing in their area. I'm also aware, though, that too many people aren't satisfied with the visibility and accountability of some police in their community and have a genuine fear of crime. I'm committed within my Safe West Mercia plan to make sure that people not only are safe but also that they feel safe. And I think how we support West Mercia Police with the resources we give, and also challenge to go ever further in responding to those community concerns, is vital in how we not only maintain those levels of satisfaction and confidence, but also build on them and seek to reassure those who might not be reassured currently. I'm incredibly grateful to the more than 140 members of the community across West Mercia who responded to asking for their concerns in the run-up to this session. I'm grateful for the support from the Chief and her team in ensuring that as many people as possible had an opportunity to submit a question or area of concern. And if you haven't had the chance to submit a question, please do in the comments beneath this broadcast, or indeed on your Safer Neighbourhood team social media, on my social media, or indeed through your Neighbourhood Matters newsletter. You have the opportunity to raise questions too. So we're going to divide into a number of different parts of the subjects today, and the first one around police visibility and patrolling the beat. Overwhelmingly, the vast majority of questions for this session were around the perception of not seeing or rarely seeing police officers patrolling in their community. One thing I think is clear is that there is gratitude for it, as in we sometimes will focus on the areas where people might not be reassured, but I think there is, I'm aware as Commissioner, but I know you're aware as Chief, there are lots of compliments over the gratitude for seeing that visibility in community. But one area I wanted to start with was around some commentary that we've had from Leominster in North Herefordshire around the number of break-ins that they've seen, and potentially concerns on speeding on the road and antisocial behaviour, and asking why. I don't think they're doubting that there's work to deal with them, but they're not seeing the visibility around parents as they would see it in their particular community. But I'm sure that could be replicated in lots of areas. So interested, Chief, as to your strategy as to how both the tackling the issue, but also the visibility at the same time would work in places like Leominster.
So I think at the outset it's really important to be clear that the effectiveness of police should be measured on the absence of crime and disorder as opposed to the visibility of the police in dealing with it. But having said that, I absolutely understand, speaking to communities and residents, the value that's placed on having that visible police presence. And just a statistic for you, because we all love statistics, in June alone, the West Mercia Police fleet travelled 700,000 miles, So that's a lot of visibility across communities, 2/3 of those in terms of the Marc fleet. And as you said, Commissioner, on the independent survey, one in 5 people report seeing a PCSO or a police officer at least once a week, which, considering the rurality of some of our communities, I think is quite significant. I'm really pleased that overall crime is down by 7% since April, and 7%, what does that mean? That means 2,000 less victims than there were last year in the same period. And you mentioned Leominster. Burglaries reduced in Herefordshire as a whole, but even more important, we're charging more people, we're solving more crime, so a real positive direction there. So in terms of Leominster, obviously, as in every other area across the 3 counties, a really strong safer neighbourhood team there. And people tend to focus just on their safer neighbourhood team, but obviously there's the response teams. I've got my road safety team, my roads policing unit, my operational policing unit. There's a whole raft of resources that sit behind and support the activity of those safer neighbourhood teams in terms of understanding those local community concerns, dealing with them and addressing them, whether it's burglary, whether it's antisocial behaviour, as you mentioned, speeding, and then really importantly going back and telling the community what we've done about it. So I absolutely recognise, you know, the importance that's placed on visible patrol and a visible policing presence in our communities is something that I'm really committed to. But hopefully the reassurance there that we are being effective and we're being increasingly effective in dealing with those issues that are of concern to the public.
So absolutely, I recognise some of the progress being made. I, as Commissioner, so as the voice of the public and setting the ways in which we not only invest but also measure the benefit of that investment, do look at crime reduction, a very central part of my Safe West Mercia plan, as you'll be aware, but also the public confidence. I do see the value of visibility as I know you do, and I do measure it, and I think it has to be as a balance. I don't think there is one single measure that says police are succeeding or not in terms of that confidence in the public, so we have to look at those range of measures. And I welcome the quote of about fleet, the miles travelled. We're an enormous force area. Do you think there's an equivalent in relation to foot patrol? Leominster, a market town, using it as an example. I've been out on patrol in the town with your teams during my time as Commissioner. How do you maximise the time that you have for visible foot patrol and physical presence in places like Leominster? And is there a strategy that you're running to maximise what capacity you have got to do it, the effect that the public will feel?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously in terms of resourcing, you know, making sure first of all that the teams are fully staffed and that they've got the resources they need, whether that's PCs or PCSOs, understanding what those community concerns are, but then also overlaying that with crime trends, intelligence, with data to understand how they can most effectively go out, deal with community concerns and prevent and solve crime. So really understanding, you know, they don't have step counters on them, so maybe we should think about introducing that to demonstrate how many steps they've done. But as you said, a vast area that we police, and so you know, a lot of mobile patrol in terms of vehicles. I think the best way that people can understand what their local teams are up to and how they're responding to those concerns is to, you mentioned safe neighbourhood teams, social media. You know, the teams are very visible, not just in person, but also online in terms of speaking to wider community, not just those people that they meet on a daily basis out and about on their patrols, but actually telling the wider communities what they've been up to and how they're responding to their concerns. So I'd encourage people to follow their Safer Neighbourhood team account, the Force account, and you know, we invest a lot in terms of the teams going onto social media to be really visible about what they're doing. Also, it's a good way to understand when and where they're going to be. So we've got 8 mobile police stations going out into the more remote communities, the smaller villages, and having those key community contacts where people can come and talk to them, you know, have a conversation around the things that are concerning them, so my teams get that really good understanding of what's going on.
One of the reasons I was keen to promote the use of things like mobile police stations in my budget, my investment in West Mercia Police is exactly that, and I do see a number of it across the Forces social media accounts, which is which is very good good to see. And as you know, I'm a keen follower of the force's social media as part of my governance role, and some of your teams do use obviously their own private step monitors, and they do publish them on social media, and I think they are proud. And whilst my reference I'm about to use is a bit dated in terms of milk being delivered, there isn't a police equivalent, is there, in terms of we have been in this street today, and this is unless you were physically there to see it. So I do welcome that commentary. How do you, Chief, balance the need and how do you give reassurance to the public that the many great pressures on policing for all the harm that's caused that needs to be dealt with, and the public priority, how do you give the reassurance that there is the right balance between the two?
Sorry, the right balance between?
The public priority, which might not necessarily be the biggest threats and harms against them that you have to deal with. There's the many competing demands on your resources, but also giving that reassurance that we still can keep enough capacity for delivering the public's priorities.
So I think it's how we work, smart how we work in a visible way. So even if we're focusing on crime, which isn't necessarily a local priority, if it's vulnerability or hidden harm, then actually how we do that, how we publicise that, how we tell the public what we've been doing, and balancing all of that alongside that really visible, accessible local presence, which is so important to our communities.
Do you think physical visibility, as in foot patrol-esque of police visibility, do you think it can improve over where it is now?
Well, with full investment in safer neighbourhood teams, you know, I'd like to see officers out and about and PCSOs out and about on foot patrol in their communities. But you know, the measure of it, as I say, is the effectiveness of what they're doing, and whether that's through reduction in crime and an increase in solved offences, but also looking at public confidence, and actually if they are doing more patrols, seeing that that makes the public feel more confident, which, you know, in terms of policing legitimacy, is absolutely essential.
So with the current resources, as we've set them, and there might be loads more resources in next year's budget, as it were, we don't know yet, do we? But with the resources as you currently got them set up, if they continued as they are now, do you think there is more that could be done around visibility as we measure it in the perception survey? And I know it might only be very small numbers, mightn't it? But do you think there is still room for improvement around the public's perception of West Mercia Police's visibility?
So would I like to see that increase from 1 in 5 people seeing an officer or PCSO once a week? Yes, I would. Absolutely. If it's something that makes people feel more confident, then yes, absolutely, I'd like to see that increase. And
do you think it's possible within the current structures?
It's something that I definitely focus on, and that we, you know, looking at those public confidence figures is something that as a force we focus on, and how we can absolutely maximise the number of officers and staff and how they're working effectively, and recognising visibility is a measure of effectiveness in terms of public perception.
That's really good, thank you. Could I use one of the quotes, or one of the questions that came in? Tony from Kington said, "There's a clear consensus in the village that in the town, that police visibility is 0. We know that S&Ts in some rural areas are small and sometimes have abstractions. How do we ensure that rural areas get an acceptable level of visibility?"
So I've been out in Kington a couple of times. PC Deanwall, fantastic safer neighbourhood officer there, and I went to a community meeting and just got overwhelmingly positive feedback in terms of his impact in that community. And you know, I don't just go to meet community members, but also to speak to my teams. And Dean genuinely understood the community concerns there. And that's replicated across all my safer neighbourhood teams. You know, I've got incredibly dedicated officers and staff who are specifically selected because of their passion for that, and because of their wanting to make a difference in the communities that they work in. And so, as I say, safer neighbourhood team model, you know, different levels of resources across the different areas, but all really, really clearly committed to their communities. We celebrated earlier this year 20 years of PCSOs in West Mercia, so more than 200 PCSOs working in our safer neighbourhood teams, and meeting them all individually, which was fantastic. But hearing the time that many of them have spent working in the same communities, you know, real visible face. Their local communities know them, but really importantly, they know their local communities. And really maintaining that investment in safer neighbourhoods is something that I'm absolutely committed to.
The very small element of policing safe neighbourhood teams out of the 2,500 police officers plus staff. Sometimes we hear from communities that their police officers are being abstracted and off to do other elements of important police work. How do you give the reassurance to myself and the wider public that is always a very careful balance, and where it does have to happen, it is as a not a last resource, because there will be other considerations you make, but appropriately balanced before that decision is taken to perhaps abstract what they see as their only resource in that community?
So first of all, reassurance that it isn't their only resource in that community, but I think a really fundamental thing that the public expect is when they dial 999, the phone gets answered, and then if they need an emergency response, that there are officers there to assist them. And so it is a very careful balance. If abstracting officers from other core duties to staff up and respond to emergencies, that is something that I monitor really carefully. We don't just abstract from safer neighbourhood teams when that becomes necessary. We look at the wider resources across the force and balance that abstraction. With the incredible investment of new officers coming into the force, it takes time for them to get fully up to speed, fully competent. They have training abstractions, and so carefully balancing that is something that we all really focus on.
I've made available recently some additional money for police officer overtime for this financial year. Would you be planning to use some of that money to minimise things like abstractions from those local safer neighbourhood teams?
Yeah, welcome additional investment into support of Safer West Mercia plan. Priorities then minimising that abstraction through the use of overtime is one thing that we've committed to.
One thing is very clear for me is the network of safer neighbourhood teams and local policing embedded within our communities across West Mercia, and we've taken a couple of Herefordshire examples there, but to follow the Herefordshire theme, I know through this process we've had some compliments around teams in Ross-on-Wye, teams around a more general comment around thanking all officers in their areas for their hard work looking in the public. There is absolutely everywhere I go, the support for the police's work and the ask to see more rather than less, and I think that's a massive compliment to not only the legitimacy of the role, but also the community's wanting that work as part of their community, which is I think a very central part of the way the policing is delivered here in West Mercia.